This is a 96 Honda Civic. Has a complaint about thumping or pecking in the floor, especially when you're stepping on the gas and letting off of it, and over rapid bumps. So I put a jack under it and raised the wheel off of the ground. Then I set a jack stand under it at the end of the control arm where it bolts to the body. Take and support the lower arm just about an inch or so the wheel's not fully extended out of the wheel well. It come up just a little bit. And I was checking the ball joints on it. The upper ball joint's shot. That's what's making a pecking noise. The wheel's not completely extended down. It's raised up just a little bit. And then let's see what happens here. That gap, the control arm moving up and down in that ball shot. This should be solid in there. Stuck a screwdriver underneath one of the coil spring turns, and that's allowed it to make a pecking noise so you can hear it inside the car when it's wore out. And the wheel's moving around. In hard turns, that'll cause it to shift so it's out of alignment. So I'm going to change that out. Just spray a little penetrating oil on this Castellan nut and the Carter pin, and then the hold down nuts, the stay nuts back in the oil well, which are pretty grungy. And take this 10mm bolt out of the air cleaner support, and lift that black plastic square up out of there, and then take whatever's holding the battery down and move the battery aside to get to this upper arm through bolt, and one down directly in line with that plastic. May find it more convenient to remove one of the battery terminals along the ignition switches off. I think I can get by with just taking this short ground wire off and turning the battery at an angle. And it's got an extra bolt down the bottom and a rubber grommet supporting this. Just more or less a support for that air tube. Now I got a big hole and access to that bolt. I've got the battery dislodged and access to this bolt. Now I'm going to go ahead and take the 19mm lug nuts off, take the wheel off. The jack stand's supporting it right where it goes against the box and the frame. And the jack's on the place provided to put a factory jack to raise it up if you have a flat tire. So I'll just take a pair of needle nose and straighten this Carter pin. I've already sprayed penetrating the wheel and everything. The through bolts on the control arm are 14mm, and this ball joint nut castle nut originally is a 17 millimeter. And if you're using a ratchet, you can stick a jack underneath the little control arm and raise the spindle up so that the control arm's level, so you can get a socket in there. Use a 17 wrench on it. It's not bad. And I'll get the nut loose enough so I can take it on and off by hand. Get all the crap cleared off of it. And thread the nut back on a little bit. If you either use a tie rod separator underneath of it, a lot of times you can just kind of hit the spindle with a hammer and it'll break loose, particularly if the wheel's hanging off of it, or you've got some kind of like a separator drove underneath of it. Now, I don't usually use a separator, although this is getting a new ball joint because it tears the ball joint up, but just a cheap tie rod separator will get in there and break it loose. It's really not that bad. It's a little tiny stud in there, so I'll just tighten that down and pop it loose. That wasn't bad. Anyway, the arm's free now. Take a ratchet and 14 millimeter socket, go up on top. Take these upper control arm stay bolts out, one on each side. And if they're in good shape, reuse them. If not, order some new ones from the dealership. That's good enough. This one's in good shape. Now that both bolts are out of the hinge point on the strut tower, just pick it out of the spindle and pull it out of there. Now that ball joint's really shot. Clean all of the grease from inside and around this tapered hole on the spindle. And if these are rusted out anywhere, have to go to a body shop or frame alignment shop and have them fix it back or junk it. Looks good, good enough. Got a replacement control arm, and they'll have whichever side you're working on. All vehicles are viewed right and left from standing behind the vehicle, and this is the right side, so it's got an R stamped on it. The factory one will have a LR or AR or AL depending on whether it's left or right, and this one has an R stamped on it. And use a new quarter pin. It's just better just buy the whole control arm so you can get the bushings and ball joint already made into it. And it's got a hard plastic protective cover on it. We'll get that off of there. And this ball joint doesn't move at all, so it's in good shape. And I'll just say I'm going to clean this spindle hole out, make sure there's no grease in it. You don't want lube inside the tapered hole, and if this nut was loose on this, then this whole spindle should be replaced and not reused. And kind of Look at it, make sure it's still cone shaped and not got shiny places on it, or the hole is an oblong shaped. And it's dry. No dirt in it. That'll interfere with the tapered seat. And I'll stick the new arm up in there. Make sure these nuts aren't totally rotted out. There's got a few splinters on that one. I'll go ahead and clean the dirt out from where these are going to seat. And if you wanted to, for a little extra protection, dry these nuts out with some brake cleaner and put some Loctite on the through bolts if you're inclined to. I'll just fish it back in there. Push the spindle back. Get the hole generally lined up. Get the through bolts. Push them back through. See what's happening here. Well, they both have to be relatively straight for the bolts to start threading back in to their stay nuts. Put my finger in there and unfill it. Close that. And get them started in there. A few threads under them. And I'll go ahead and push this down and pull the spindle out so it'll pass on through it. And you kind of want your quarter pin looking at you so you know where to tighten this nut down and stick the pin back through. If it isn't, you can stick a nail or scratch awl or something in it and turn it. If it's a point where you can't see it, turn it where you can see it. It'll put up a fight. And snug this down. The stay bolts, I'll run them down till they're still loose, but the heads are touching the body, but they'll still a little bit of movement in them. And before tightening those down, we either want to jack the lower control arm and the wheel up till the way the vehicle comes off of the jack stand under there, or put the wheel and tire back on it and let the car down on it, and then come up and finish tightening these bolts to 40 foot-pounds with the car loaded on the bushings. That's so it doesn't rip those bushings when this control arm goes up above level. And if they're gripped back here in the back, it'll put a load on them bushings and eventually rip them out. And you want the load on the bushings where the normal ride height is, so it doesn't stress them out. So I'm going to go ahead and snug these down close to the body. Okay, they're down but not tight. Still pretty loose in there. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten this castling nut down to the 30 pounds, 31 pounds or so, plus or minus a couple pounds. Get it to about 28, 26, and then turn it till one of these slots line up with that hole. So stick the quarter pin back in it. The castling nut's back into place and the quarter pin's installed. Still got a gap in the bushings there where see the bolt passing through, so the bushings aren't going to get loaded up when I put some weight on the suspension. It's an opportune time to check the tie rod ends and stuff. And push it back and forth on the caliper and make sure the wheel doesn't move. And replace any other ball joints accordingly, bushings, broken springs or anything, upper mounts. And put the wheel back on it, let the car down on the wheel. The lug nuts tighten down to 80 foot-pounds. Take it easy on them, they're just little guys. Now the way the car is on the control arm, I'll go ahead and run these down to 40 foot-pounds, both of them. Feel free to stick whatever hubcap back on it. Put the battery back in place and whatever was removed to get it out. And I'll fish this air cleaner tube support back in, if that's the way it come out. And put the two 10mm back in on it. And you can have the alignment checked accordingly. And that should wrap it up.